Well, I'm live. I'm going to give it a couple more minutes and start at exactly 7 o'clock. And still trying to adjust things here. Oh, wait a second. Okay, that works a little bit better. Yes, I have the microphone in front of my face. I was told this is the way to do a podcast because you get better sound. Um, okay, I'm going to get started here. So anyway, you got to bear with me here. I'm recording for the first time and I'm live for the first time. It's 7 o'clock here on the here on the West Coast. I typically don't record at this time because it's too loud outside, as you might be able to hear the dog in the background. I typically wait until much later, but I just thought that I would give East Coast people a chance to sign in. So 7 o'clock here is 10 o'clock there, and everything in between. So here we go. Okay. Listen, I'm going to take a sip of water. That's something else that I typically don't do. I'm really going to have to edit this podcast before I post it. But anyway, okay. Welcome to the podcast. Thanks for joining me. I'm your host, Christopher Gajewski. Let's get naked about mental health. In this episode, I had something different planned, much different. Then a post I read on LinkedIn, well, pissed me off. I know Big Willie via the legend of Bagger Vance. You have to look on it with soft eyes. I tried and did eventually. But the Southwest Philly boy came out as well. As a Philly boy yourself, you should understand. So in the episode, I get into my response to the post. I talk about teletherapy, healthcare professionals, and just talking. I also talk a little bit about things that I'm doing now that you can be doing if you're struggling. So, before getting into the episode, the important stuff, I just want to remind everybody that I am not a psychologist, psychiatrist, therapist, or any kind of professional with an ist at the end of their title. I am just a guy who has been there. If you are in crisis or know somebody who is, I implore you to reach out to a professional. There is now a national hotline you can call 988. I'll repeat that because it bears repeating. If you or someone you know is in crisis, I implore you to reach out to a professional. Dialing or texting 988 will put you in touch with a crisis counselor instantly. Now, let's get into the episode. Let them eat cake? I was triggered by a post I saw by a mental health professional. They posted the following and a picture of an advertisement they saw on Facebook for teletherapy. I find this advertising to be misleading, she wrote. Traditional therapy can provide most of this and with better quality. I might add in the traditional therapy column, choose your own therapist, use your insurance benefits, get a diagnosis and treatment plan. Have a motivated therapist who is making more than $30. Now, if I only had millions of dollars to run competing Facebook ads, I looked on it with soft eyes. There was a part of me that agreed with her. Then there was the Philly boy, the Philly attitude, and 50 years of experience of dealing with the mental health care system in this country. That part of me interpreted the post by a woman who calls herself Maryland's mental health care maven and practices. Part of me interpreted the post by a woman who calls herself Maryland's mental health care maven and practices psychotherapy with about 5,000 followers as let them eat cake. Let them eat cake, wrongly attributed to Marie Antoinette, is taken to reflect a princess's frivolous disregard for the starving peasants or her poor understanding of their plight. Yeah, there is the Philly in me. There's also a seasoned journalist and a critical thinker that would like to invite constructive dialogue on the matter. But the post triggered me. I found myself back in Southwest Philly in a working class neighborhood. Though I have seen some improvements in recent years, I'm a child of the 70s that witnessed the devolution of the mental health care system, particularly for the poor and underserved. My mother was diagnosed as manic depressive with schizophrenic tendencies. When she was hospitalized in the 70s and 80s, it was mandatory 30 days. Over the decades, that would drop to 15, then 10, then finally 3 days, where she would be sent home so medicated that she could not function. I replied to the post that I both agreed and disagreed. More Southwest Philly came out than the seasoned journalist, I'm afraid. I've been doing the therapy dance now for decades, I wrote. I need it now. When I had insurance, I didn't have the time. When I don't have insurance, I can't afford it. There's the issue of finding the right therapist. I jump through hoops, make the appointment, do the intake, make the commute, and then find the therapist is not a good fit. I give it a few more sessions hoping for something. I am typically already in a depression because therapy has become more like triage than anything else. You need patience. I think I read that each medication has a 40% chance of being effective, and you need to take it for 30 to 60 days to see if it works for you. I see therapists as the same way. You need to find a therapist that is a good fit for you, that you can establish a sound therapeutic relationship with. As with meds, you might get lucky on the first try. More often than not, you make do with what you have or start the dance again. I did finally find one who was truly making a huge impact on my life. I was working in combination of weekly therapy sessions and monthly psychiatry sessions. I felt that after 45 years, I was finally on the right track and making a lot of progress. Dr. Ralph of Spectrum Behavior Services was amazing. Just as with medications, though, you can become resistant. Dr. Ralph had guided me through the process of switching from the Zoloft I had been on for 15 to 20 years to a new med, Vibrid. My very good insurance did not cover it. So she supplied me with samples as she fought with the insurance company to force them to cover it. I think it took over a year. I did not become resistant to Dr. Ralph. I had and continue to have the highest and utmost respect for her and her abilities. She was the best doctor, the best psychiatrist I had ever dealt with. But she sold her private practice to some national company. All of a sudden, I couldn't get through anymore to refill my meds. Then COVID hit and a difficult situation turned ugly. I ran out of meds. Every doctor on the planet will tell you to just not stop taking these kinds of meds. Hell, even if you are suffering from bad side effects, you are still cautioned to wean yourself off of them. I finally went to the emergency room during COVID. The ER doctor said she was not supposed to give me a prescription, but given the special circumstances, she would. But she urged me to find a new provider. The Southwest Philly did come out in the letter I mailed to that company. Or maybe it was just the withdrawal symptoms. No, it was definitely the Philly. After singing the praise of Dr. Ralph in the letter, like the Vienna Boys Choir, the terms shit show and cluster edited came up a lot. I remember in the closing of the letter, I mentioned how Dr. Ralph was part of the solution to the mental health care crisis in the country, but the company was part of the cancer in the mental health care system. After the medications were back in my system and I was feeling better, I was finally able to make an appointment with a telehealth provider, a psychiatric nurse practitioner who was very good at her job. Telehealth as opposed to traditional therapy? I wrote in my reply to Maryland's mental health maven, on the battlefield, you take whatever is offered. At that point, during the pandemic, with everything going on, with my depression and anxiety really kicking into high gear, the last thing I needed was to worry about running low on meds. She replied to my response, I'm sorry to hear that was your experience. Do you think a platform like teletherapy would have given you the quality care you needed? The Southwest Philly boy heard the echo of let them eat cake. I replied, still trying to look with soft eyes, but then memory surfaced that had the Southwest Philly boy punching me between them. What is quality care? I wrote. Where do you get it and who do you get it from? Would, say, the head of a psychiatric hospital with multiple degrees provide better care than a therapist from a teletherapy provider? One of the potential triggers of my PTSD occurred the day after I sat with my mother and her psychiatrist, the head of a psychiatric clinic. She was his only patient, I think. This amazing transformation had taken place in the ride to the emergency visit. My mother was deep in a psychotic state, something I talk about in a previous episode. She considered herself an instrument of Satan sent to spread disease on the earth, and she was about to kill herself. You are taught in writing classes to never talk about a person's eyes, that the eyes are merely parts of the body and you can't see anything in them. The only thing you can see in them is the lens and the pupil. You have to describe it, show it, not write some corny line like, I saw insanity in her eyes. But I did. And the insanity was the smallest part of what I saw. She had sat there on the sofa, scratching the disease on her arms, and there was something beyond madness in her eyes. Looking into her eyes was like looking through a window into hell. Madness radiated off of her like heat waves as she rocked back and forth and scratched at her arms. In the doctor's office, she was a woman with an IQ well beyond genius level, a master manipulator who did not want to be hospitalized. It was in the hospital during her last 3-day hospitalization that she caught the disease she now spread. I was told by the head of the psychiatry clinic, the head of the psychiatry portion of the hospital, that my mother was fine. There was an unspoken disapproval from him, a glance at the multiple degrees and awards hanging on the wall, as if I just wanted a break from caring for my mother. The following morning, police burst through the front door of my 2-floor apartment. In a moment of lucidity, my mom had called 911. The doctor said it was a miracle she survived. They could only guess that it was fortunate for her that she attempted suicide by 2 routes, slicing and pills. The pills had slowed her heart enough that the blood congealed and gave her time to make the call. I was not so fortunate. I still remember walking through my apartment in October of 1999, wondering how much blood there was in a person. My mom had paced after she sliced, and it looked as though someone had taken multiple cans of red paint and splashed them throughout my kitchen, bathroom, hallway, and then poured a can or two on her bed for good measure. My own period of decompensation began, my time of madness. Without insurance and without access to therapy, teletherapy did not even exist then. I wonder if it would have made a difference. It would be 6 months before I came the closest than I ever have to following my mother at the time. Would a platform like teletherapy offer me the quality therapy I needed? I would have to research it more, I replied to her. Had she even researched it before posting? But I know that just having someone to talk to is a huge help. I know that BetterHelp.com is another one where you can switch therapists as often as you like until you find a good fit. I did not know the company the Maven had posted about Talkspace, but I do know BetterHelp. Following an interview on a podcast with a licensed psychologist who spoke highly of them, I reached out to them online. I had not been thrilled with the intake interview questions that matched me with a therapist, but I did get an appointment right away. I also knew that I could switch therapists as often as I needed until I found a good fit. The cost was something I could afford. Well, I could afford it, but I lost my job before I began therapy, so I was forced to cancel. They refunded me the money I had paid up front. Perhaps beating the saying, let them eat cake to death, I put myself on bread and water rations until I could find a new job and possibly get insurance. Quality care is expensive, beyond the means of most Americans, I replied to her. The healthcare system has been circling the drain now for decades. I welcome any and all alternatives. I would like it to be quality care, but I wish everyone had just had access to care and took it. I hope to help end the stigma of getting care and will promote any way a person can reach out to talk to someone. I reached out to the mental health professional in a private message. I told her I understood their position and apologized if I had come across too harsh in their post. I wrote that a lot needs to be done and I would welcome a conversation about it. They wrote back, I know care navigation is a huge problem. Good luck. Let them eat cake. I do need to do more research. I need to talk with professionals and teletherapy care providers. I'm trying to arrange an interview with Leo Flowers, host of the podcast Before You Kill Yourself, who interviewed me about my new book. I'm live, Leo. Are you there? And he, as one of my few subscribers on Podbean, Leo, Bueller. That's just my sense of humor. Nothing Philly or passive aggressive about it. Seriously. When I go Philly, I go Philly. One thing I worry about on my podcast is bad information. As I stated at the beginning of my show, and what I state at the beginning of every show, is I am not a psychologist, psychiatrist, therapist, or any kind of profession with an ist at the end of their title. I am just a guy who has been there. I just try to be an authentic voice to get people talking to anybody. We definitely need a better answer than my podcast. But we also need a better answer than let them eat cake. But let's make a right at Philly. Coming from the south, we'll cross over the Walt Whitman Bridge and soon be on the Atlantic City Expressway. One of the most absolute boring rides I have ever taken in my life. In an hour or so, we'll be in Atlantic City. We drive through the casinos, maybe park in one. Forget about it. We're not there for that. Yeah, those women we pass, forget about them too. We're sure as hell not here for that. No, let's just stroll down to the boardwalk, cross over the wide wooden walkway, and make our way down to the beach, and then the quarter of a mile or so to the ocean. We can sit in the sand and look out over the waves. It is much easier to look at sunrise with soft eyes. Or, in my case, wait for the sunrise and even the pre-dawn. Something happened to me a while back. I started waking up early, very early, 4 a.m. today. I look at my clock, know that I could go back to sleep, but something pulls me to the coffee maker instead. There's something in me that wants to start my day after coffee. I'm tired. Know that I will crash for a nap about 10, but I just want to start my day and begin doing something. It's so different than the way that I felt this time last year. This morning, Saturday, I know I'm recording, but I wrote this on Saturday. I feel guilty. My dog, Danny, woke up with me. Before I broke my ankle, I had her trained. I'd take her out when I woke up to do her business. She begs to go out. I can't do anything about it. I have a tiny back patio where I leave puppy pads. All I can do now is hope she uses them. But what can you do? Bagger Vance would say to look at the upcoming day with soft eyes. Look at the entire field. It is not a dragon to slay. If you are struggling, if you are jumping through those hoops to begin therapy or to get meds, there are things you can do right now. First, don't do what I do. Don't start the coffee maker. Go the hell back to sleep and get your rest. Leo made it a point to talk about it in our interview, and I found it odd at first because he really was focusing in on the whole sleep aspect. He wanted to talk about sleep, good sleep. I looked into it after the fact and remember something that I learned. There's a direct correlation between sleep and depression. I figured it out while I drove across the United States on my odyssey. When I was exhausted, started out the day exhausted, my mood was directly affected. But you don't have to take my word for it. There are a ton of articles online about the bidirectional relationship between sleep and depression. Is it the chicken and the egg question? Which came first? Bad sleep leading to depression or depression leading to bad sleep? Doesn't matter to me when looking at the pre-dawn with soft eyes. 7 to 9 hours of sleep each night is essential. Do what you have to do to get there. Therapy and meds can help, but if you don't have access to either or are waiting, there are steps you can take to get there anyway. First, it is suggested to establish a routine. Make it a point to go to bed at the same time each night. For me, that is about 10 these days. Before I broke my ankle, I'd go to bed about 10 and then wake up at about 5 or 6. My 7 to 8 hours. It makes a difference. One thing about being stranded in Mexico is access to meds is much, much easier. I don't have to jump through hoops. I don't have to worry about it anymore. I can buy most of the meds over the counter or with a prescription that I get from the doctor who is actually in the pharmacy and will write me the prescription for a couple extra bucks. And they're cheap. I can get a 3 to 5 month supply of my clonazepam for $25 or so. 1.5 milligrams enables me to turn my mind off at night and fall asleep. All my life, I was a coffee addict. I could drink coffee right before bed and still fall asleep. That changed. Now I know that I have to stop in the afternoon. I still crave coffee, but have switched to decaf. With the help of my friend Sarah, I found an excellent one that I enjoy. I have a funny video about it on Instagram if you want to go find it. I'll try to find it and link it to my website for this episode. I'm not quite sure how to do that. I got to figure it out. But Cafe Bustelo, it is a Cuban coffee. I make it in an Italian espresso maker and then add hot water to make a full cup. Another thing that you can do is avoid booze. I was never a big drinker, but I did enjoy my beers. And I know the struggle. That booze should help me fall asleep. Enough of it and I pass out. But I also know what happens. Booze is a depressant. Yes, it does relax me. Yes, it can help me fall asleep. But I also know it metabolizes in my body and starts working as a stimulant midway through the night and wakes me up, whether to go to the bathroom, stomach issues, or a sugar rush. I also know how it affects me the next day. It brings me down, makes me feel like shit. Even just a few, the older I have gotten, the more it affects me the following day. It can make me unproductive the following day, which then makes me feel like an even bigger piece of shit, which then makes it harder to fall asleep because my mind is racing with all the things I should have and could have gotten done that day. Yes, I take a break from my routine once in a while. I go out and have a few beers, but I try to limit it to only once in a while and stick with 2, maybe 3 beers. I know that's my limit. I can still function the next day, and it's not really going to affect my mood. 4 beers? Nope. It will affect my mood. It's that close of a line. Even that 3rd beer sometimes. If you do have access to health care, I highly recommend talking to your doctor about a sleep study. I bet you weren't expecting that one. And there is an app for that as well if you don't have access to health care. But many people suffer from poor sleep because of snoring or sleep apnea, and they never know it. I never knew that I snored until my wife pointed it out to me. She never knew that she snored until I pointed it out to her. She didn't believe me, of course, so I recorded it one night on video. I got a great shot of one of the dogs being startled awake by one of her snores. But there are dental appliances that can help with the snoring as well as light to moderate sleep apnea. I swear by mine, the DSAD by Panthera. One of the best things about it, though, is that it is covered by health insurance, not dental insurance, which is typically better. And it also makes a lot of dentists happy because they get to charge more. As I told Leo, though, as a professional in that field, don't get one of those over the counter things that you can pick up in the store unless you absolutely must. I think they are all crap. And the ones you can get nowadays from the direct to consumer companies where you make your own mold and send them in are even worse. They should be fitted by a qualified specialist, or else you run the risk of damaging your teeth and jaw. Something else that you can do that I make it a point to do each day, even with a broken ankle, is just simply get the hell outside. All the studies are clear on that. Getting outside and spending time in the sunshine helps. That was a big reason why I didn't make the move up into the Pacific Northwest. I loved it up there. It was gorgeous. But I really didn't think I could handle 6 months of dreary days. But my doctor here, when I broke my ankle, Dr. Sabahi, wrote me a prescription for going out in the sunshine. No shit. At least 1 hour, he told me, but I should be doing 3 in the sunshine. He even wrote it up. So I gimped my way up to the roof with my iPhone and listened to music while soaking in the sunshine. Let's face it, if you are suffering from anxiety or depression, the last thing you want to do is go outside. You want to isolate. I understand this. Don't. I know what I'm asking here. I am asking you, like I told myself, to change lifelong habits. I'm also telling you to battle the depression and anxiety. It is hard, difficult, but there isn't a magic bullet here to solve all my problems. It takes work. And I think that just by doing the work, just by taking action, helps me with the depression and anxiety. Popping that pill I don't want to take, doing the small things and the bigger things makes me feel better, makes me feel like I am more in control of my life, wresting the power back from the depression and anxiety. It empowers me. But let's get back to the list. There are a few more things that you can do that I do to empower myself. Exercise. There's a direct correlation there as well. Exercise releases endorphins, something missing in the right quantity in those with depression. Be realistic like I am, though. I have a gym right across from my front door to my apartment in my complex. I stare at it from my front door. These days, laid up with my ankle, I stare at it even more as I sit outside of my front door. I see the people using weights and jumping on the treadmill or the elliptical machine. I stared at them even before I broke my ankle, and there's a really good chance I'll be staring at them after I heal, though I know I need to get in there. I just went for walks each day instead, just strolls with my iPhone and headphones at least 2 miles a day. These days, after sitting on my butt for 2 weeks and having bruised ribs that made using crutches impossible, I couldn't do anything until I healed. Now I crutch my way up and down my apartment complex, and I make my way up onto the roof. I'm still trying to figure out if it's safe or not for me to exercise. I've been told different things. I read some things on the internet that said, yeah, with a broken ankle, start exercising. And then other people have told me, you shouldn't be doing anything. So I got an appointment with my doctor on Wednesday. I'll talk to him then. Yoga was a huge help for me. And in many places, they offer free classes. Yoga teachers are really an exceptional bunch of people. They reach out to the community. I know a few that offer free classes to the underserved, the underprivileged. They offer classes that you can donate if you want to. But it was a huge help for me. I don't like the apps and videos to use at home, but you might. It was part of my like going to the yoga class meant more to me than just practicing at home. It was part of my getting out thing. Besides exercise, yoga also teaches an important lesson that is especially helpful for those suffering from anxiety, depression, and PTSD: mindfulness. I personally noticed huge improvements in my mood and my energy level when I was practicing a couple times a week. Meditation is something I can and do practice at home now. There are a load of free apps for it. It's funny, I was just looking at my iPhone and I had to update an app, and there was one that I had forgotten that I had. So I'll be taking a look at that one tonight. But meditation is part of the mindfulness thing. Just 10 to 30 minutes each day. Just like yoga, it is difficult at first. Practice. It really does make a difference. Hey, I know. I'm from Philly, as I mentioned. I didn't believe in any of that crap. Yoga, chakras, meditation, exercise, quit drinking, sleep. I always said I'd sleep when I'm dead. Well, I almost was. So started looking into things. I did an episode a while back where I discuss the mental health triangle. Self care to me is the base of that triangle that supports the other two sides: psychiatry or meds, and psychology or therapy. It's the part I ignored the most throughout my life. Don't be like me. Start putting in the time and effort on all these free things and see what a difference it can make. And that is a wrap for this week's episode. I'm still reading off a script, even though this is live, and I'll now open it up to questions. But as I am writing the script beforehand, and for those who are listening to the normal recorded session, I'm now going to gimp my way up to the roof and enjoy my hour of doctor prescribed sunbathing. Aloha. Anybody? 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 So I did go live. Uh, nobody joined me. I don't know, but I don't know. This was interesting setting this up. So I'm going to continue this. If anyone is listening to the recorded episode, and if you think that there's a better time than Monday night to be doing this, just give me a shout out. I really don't know. I mean, like my schedule right now is really open. Um, Maybe do the episode one night and then do a follow-up session with the live thing another night. I'm open for suggestions. I'm open for ideas here, any way that I can help, any way I can reach more people. But thanks a lot for listening. And sorry that you couldn't make the show. Like I said, it was my first effort, so I really didn't give anyone enough time. But this was episode 13, and I'm going to keep on doing this. Um, we'll see what happens. But anyway, have a nice evening or a nice day or a nice morning, depending on what time that you are listening to this. And click and share, follow along. If you know someone in your life that is struggling, make them listen, or not make them, but ask if they want to listen to this. If someone in your life is struggling and you don't understand, reach out to me or listen to the episodes. I try to explain it to both sides because it's so hard to understand. But that is a wrap. And I'm going to end the stream now and see what I can do with the audio recording. There's a really good chance I missed the record button, so I'll have to re-record it. I don't know yet, so I'll check that out. Peace. Aloha.